Hi, we're the Stellington News, and today we're going to be discussing the Middle East, and this specific topic is going to be the Egyptian Revolution and the Tahrir protest. So we're going to have some people call in and ask some questions.
The activists were involved to protest for government corruption, unemployment, and poverty. And Hosni Mubarak was the president who had power for 30 years, and they were trying to get him out. There were many anti-government protesters, and there were a lot of people and groups involved. For example, the Front to Defend Egypt protesters were a group of lawyers who organized the protesting event. And the Muslim Brotherhood was banned from Egypt, and they were the biggest opposition to Mubarak. And they officially stated that they wouldn't attend protests, but a few members were found and arrested. And one of the main protests was on Tuesday, January 25th, 2011, and that was a protest that didn't have government permit. And the people did it because they were oppressed and wanted more rights.
Okay, let's go to our next question. Well, the Gamal inheritance scenario is finished. Mubarak will not run for another presidential term. His term ends in October, and whether he serves out or resigns for health reasons when things cool down, he is dying and will be gone. The army is in control. Egypt is heading back to the golden age of army rule. The kids are no longer in charge, the men are. Until the economy fails again, the neoliberal economic policies are finished. Forget about the open economy for some time to come. The immediate task of the army is to stabilize the situation and enforce order. The internal security forces have been ordered back into the streets. The next will be to deal with the political activists and Muslim Brotherhood who now dominate the scene. It is anyone's guess how long that will go. But in a couple of days, the Egyptians will probably be begging the army to shoot them. Third is the return of life to normal, with the people returning to work and food somehow becoming available. Political questions will come later.
Protesters were affected, and police officers. The protesters had tear gas and water cannons used against them by the police, and the protesters used rock and fire bombs against the police. And Mubarak was also affected because he resigned on February 11, 2011.
Okay. It only lasted for 18 days, including the protests like the Tahrir Square protest and the collapse of all the enforcement like the police and the prison systems. It only lasted this long because the people were able to achieve their goal by having Gamal's son not be in charge when he will end his presidential term. They wanted to have a better and stronger government, and through their demonstrations and protests, the people were able to achieve this goal.
The economy was really affected by the protests and the revolution. Tourism makes up 11% of it, and by February 2011, tourism was off by 80% compared to before the revolution, and by March 2011, tourism was decreased by 60%. The economy took a huge blow, and there were less jobs because 1 in every 7 jobs involved tourism, and there was inflation that increased, and there was less foreign investment, and food prices had increased by 48%, and the economic growth slowed from 5.3% in 2010 to 2.5% in 2011, which resulted in a lot of stress on the economy.
All right. The biggest effect that it had on other countries was known as the Arab Spring, which pretty much was once other countries saw that the people, if they protested, they could change the government, it would help them change their government as well. For example, Libya and Syria, when they saw these revolutions, they decided to take their own actions and try and change their governments as well.
Children were really affected by the revolution and protests. There were a lot of problems which included trauma, anxiety, affected future, and education gaps. They were also involved in violence, and the government paid them 50 Egyptian pounds to participate in pro-government protests, and 2.7 million out of 11 million kids were out of work. And there were school gaps in the curriculum because school was missing, which resulted in them missing education and losing their opportunity.
Okay. This actually was very similar to other revolutions occurring in the Middle East because most of the countries in the Middle East wanted to change in their government and how it was run and who's in charge, and they also wanted rights, and by doing this, having protests, they were able to change their government. And also, if you were curious as to where it was located in Cairo, the capital of Egypt, Tahrir Square, Alexandria, Montserrat, Tanta, Aswan, and Asut. And as you're leaving this program and after what you heard, some questions that you should be asking yourself is, how could this conflict lead to other possible conflicts in the Middle East? And how will this forever change the dynamic of Egypt? Thank you.